Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Sons of Ours. This is Micah Flores.
And I am Ian Wintering.
Hi, Ian.
Hello.
So we are in the middle of, towards the end of January. We're just starting February. This won't be coming out for a couple weeks, but yeah, it's we're back in the swing of things at school. Our first break is coming up. We have retreat next
break.
week, and break. So we're looking forward to that. And today on the show, we have with us Miguel Mendoza.
It's good to be here, guys. Thank you.
Hey, Miguel. Miguel, where are you from?
I am from Greeley, Colorado. So
Nice.
Yeah, that means nothing to me. I don't know where any of
The
these
smell
places
of
are.
the cows.
Yeah. it's not that bad. It's a pretty nice little town. So
Yeah. We when I was going to school up at CU, we would always talk about how you can start to smell all of the stank from Greeley right before it's about to snow. I don't know what it is, but maybe the northern winds push like the poopy smell from Greeley all the way into Denver into Boulder. And then it's
true,
like,
yeah.
and then literally like that night it starts snowing or it starts raining or something like that. But
yeah, stuck
Yeah.
with snow and poopy smell. So
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And also this weekend we had some of the guys went to the Gala of Hope, right?
Oh yeah,
What is it called?
Beacons of
Beacon
Hope.
of
Beacon
Hope
of Hope.
Gala.
Yeah, which
Beacon
is
of
the
Hope
big
Gala.
pro-life fundraiser in the diocese.
Yeah, I heard it was pretty epic.
Yeah, it was pretty long. So like I don't think Tony and I got home till like 11:30.
Oh,
so
dang.
it was, or maybe that was me because I had to drop Tony off and then I went home after that. So I might have gotten home later. But anyway, it was pretty long. But the best part of this was so they have this weird game that they do right at the beginning of the whole event, where like
Okay.
during the cocktail hour, you have the opportunity to buy these little these pearl necklaces. Like
Not
the
real pearls.
No, it's like
Oh,
the
okay.
plastic ones. But they're like $25 a piece.
Okay.
And I guess they do this game called Head or Heart, where basically you have to either pick and you put your hands on your head or your hands on your heart. And the heart is tails and the head is heads.
Okay, so it's like flipping a coin.
Right. And so in theory, like, half the people get knocked out in the first round. And for every bead that you have on your neck
How do you
is
know
a
if
life.
you win, though, if you put your head on your heart?
Well, they will flip a coin on the stage and they say, okay, it is
Oh.
heads. So everybody who has their
Okay.
hands on their heads stays alive. And, most people only have one or two necklaces. And so they have two lives, basically, right? You take off the necklace
Right.
if you're wrong. Well, there's this very generous man. I forget his name, and I feel really bad. Tony would remember him. But
Okay.
he just bought a ton of these necklaces
For
and
all
was
the
just
seminarians.
and was just handing them out to seminarians. And he was telling us, he's like, oh yeah, like explaining how the game works. And he's like, yeah, last year, the guy that won had like 30 necklaces, and because he could go up there and lose a bunch of times, but he still had way more than everybody else. And so we sat down, and before we started this game, Tony and I looked around, and every single one of the seminarians had one or two of these necklaces on, and we're like, let's consolidate these. And so we all put them on Kevin Casel, who's like, if you don't know Kevin Casel, he's like Mr. T. He's like this huge.
He's like we all describe him as the big giant teddy bear. 'Cause
Yeah,
he
is
He's like 6'4" probably, and
by far the strongest guy in seminary.
yeah, I once witnessed him move a piano like by himself.
Yes.
We helped him a little bit, but it was mainly
Right.
just Kevin Casel picking this thing up and
Right.
like shimmying it out the door and then into the to the
living room.
Lord's living
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Were you there when
I
Kevin
was
did that?
there,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
nuts.
It's insane.
Oh my gosh.
But so this guy, we're all wearing clerics. We throw like probably 30 or 40 of these necklaces on his neck. And they do the first couple rounds just you stand up where you are, right?
Right.
This big
Yeah,
convention center. But after about after most of the people had already been eliminated, there was like 5 or 6 people left. They just called them up to the stage, and we're like, "Oh no!"
So Kevin walks up.
Kevin walks up there with a massive wad of just necklaces on his neck, and he's wearing his clerics. And the guy on the stage is like, "Oh, we got big Mike Tyson here."
Yeah, big money, Mike Tyson.
Yeah, it was, and it actually was very close. So
how was it close?
So basically, when it got down to only 2 people, the guy that was flipping the coin, he said that the person who had the least amount of beads gets to pick whether it's going to be head or heart. And Kevin, because he obviously had more than everybody else, had to pick the opposite. So he didn't even get to choose. And so the guy just kept guessing correctly. He only had like maybe 3 beads on his neck. And Kevin was reduced down to maybe like 8 or 9 beads out of the 30 that he started with.
Out of the 30.
It's just like
wow.
everybody in the audience was just going nuts because we're like, if he loses. But anyway, yeah, so he ended up winning, and he won a bunch of gift cards, I guess, which are all being donated to the seminary. So we're gonna get some new couches in our
was a
lounge
value
room.
of $1,000.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But Father Leonard's like, make sure you donate that to the seminary. That's not for yourself.
Yeah.
It was just so funny.
I heard there was people just laughing super hard
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're like, obviously this seminarian doesn't have enough to buy 30 necklaces.
Right.
So something sketchy was happening with all those hoodlums and
Right.
clerics, you know. We did a similar game. They have a when I was up at CU, they have another fundraising dinner. It's called the St. Therese dinner, and they played a similar game, except you put it on your head, and then you put it on on like your back pockets of your pants.
What?
It's heads, tails.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's weird.
Yeah. So it was so. I think I like the head, the heart.
Right.
But it is kind of a funny
Right.
pun.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a fun. Those are fun dinners.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of weird going to them, I guess, sometimes. But they're still fun. You get to know a lot of the
Right. Well, from being out of state, that's
Families
what
and-
makes it weird. Is like I don't really know.
right.
Like I'm just walking around with Tony. Like I
And
feel
he
like
knows everybody.
I
Yeah.
feel like I was a dog on a leash. Like Tony's just walking around
like,
and I'm
"Come
just
here, boy.
following him.
Come here."
Right. But yeah, because he knew everybody, and I was like, yeah, I've never met you before. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tim Skoke's brother. Shout out. What's his first name again?
John Mark.
Is that right?
Which one?
The one that's a
who's-
musician.
Yeah, John Mark.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
he playing at it?
No. I just
okay.
happened to see him there.
Cool.
But yeah, that was because he went to SLS, so I saw him there. I didn't meet him, but I saw him there because he was singing.
Yeah,
for
he's
the,
like in charge of all the
Right.
he's like one of the head worship
Mhm.
guys there. So yeah, he's a good dude. The whole Skoke family's awesome. I was up with Tim and Colin and some of the other guys from the seminary at the Gathering of Men retreat, which was pretty awesome as well. I got to go up with my dad too, and it was just a really epic weekend. Monsignor Leone and Father John Lager doing their thing. They've been
Right.
doing it for like 25, 30 years.
Yeah, I think Monsignor told us that it'll be the 30th anniversary next year.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
so.
it's
Yeah,
29,
Yeah, that sounds
yeah.
right. And so you go up there and you meet guys who've been going basically every single year.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. And then some of the guys have invited like their whole families. So one of the guys who's been organizing it and helping with that called up like his 3 sons, his brother-in-law, his brother, his dad, and it was like the whole family tree was up there at the front. And so it was cool. It was really cool.
Oh, nice.
It's up in Estes Park.
Right.
So, yep. So Miguel, you're from Greeley.
Yeah, I am from
And
Yeah.
you spent your whole childhood there, right? You grew up there.
Yeah, the first time I ever left Greeley to live anywhere else was when I entered seminary. So I've been living there all my life.
Were you one of
so-
those
Wow.
guys who like literally never left the city either? Like it was
Yep.
your first time
Yeah.
leaving Greeley coming
Yeah,
down to
it
seminary?
was.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
except for like vacation and all that. But yeah,
Okay.
that's the first time.
Man, that's such a different. I had to travel 800 miles to get to the nearest seminary.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
Yeah, you just came.
because we don't have
down the
one in
road.
our own
Yeah,
diocese.
We're
so
very
it's-
fortunate to have this seminary here. So
My dad was telling a story when he worked in, I think it was like Louisiana or something like that. He would meet guys at his work who hadn't left like this 40-mile radius city their whole lives. Like not even for vacation, not for anything. They grew up there. They went to grade school, middle school, high school, and then I think maybe even went to college there, and then got a job there, and they hadn't left. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
that's nuts. Isn't that crazy? You just don't hear about that anymore. It probably is how it used to always be, but we have cars and planes, and we're traveling all over
Right.
the place.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yep. And so how big's your family?
So I have one older sister and one younger brother. My older sister, she's married now with two daughters.
nice.
Yeah,
Two
wonderful
little
nieces.
nieces.
Two little nieces, yeah. And
Is
one
one
of them
going to
is
be called
actually-
Miguela?
No,
No?
That'd be pretty weird. One of them is actually having her quinceañera this weekend.
Oh my
so-
gosh. So she's old.
Yeah, she's pretty old.
Wow. Are you going to go?
Yeah, I have to go. I'm her uncle, so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that little obligation.
Man, that's pretty exciting.
It is,
Because
yeah. it's pretty
quinceañeras are a
exciting.
big deal.
Yeah, and also makes me feel pretty old now, too. So, yeah, and the youngest niece, she's 2 years old. So
Okay.
it's a huge.
Oh my
age gap.
gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
That's nuts.
that is very nuts. Yeah.
So what's the plan for the quinceañera? You guys doing a pretty big
It's gonna
party,
be pretty low key. We're just gonna get together at my sister's house and have just a little nice party with family members and friends.
Okay.
Some food here and there. So
or is your mom making the food?
I don't know who's making the
Okay.
food. So
I remember when we were in SY, we were celebrating Our Lady of Guadalupe, and she made a bunch of just
yeah,
delicious
she
food.
made
my
tamales.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't she make pozole too or something?
For the Feast of Our Lady, I
can't
don't
remember.
think she did. No.
Just the tamales?
yeah, just the
yeah.
tamales.
It was delicious though.
Yeah, she always offers to make some. She's like, Mijo, if you need tamales for Our Lady, I'll be more than happy to make them.
That's awesome.
So,
Cool. Yeah, so you grew up there. Were you always Catholic? I mean, I know the answer, but the
yeah,
listeners
well,
don't.
I was not always Catholic.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I was raised a Jehovah Witness.
Oh.
Wow. I did
yeah.
not know that.
You didn't know
I
that,
was-
Ian?
No.
Oh man, you're in for a treat here.
Yeah,
We're
you're
gonna have some
cheating,
fun.
Yeah.
Miguel's story's awesome.
Oh,
I
thanks,
I
Miguel.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was a raised Jehovah Witness. We were all very devout Jehovah Witnesses.
What does it mean to be a devout Jehovah's Witness?
So you go to the Kingdom Hall not once a week, but twice a week.
Wow.
So they go Wednesdays and Sundays. I remember going Wednesdays and Sundays. And my family would always be that family that would always be there willing to help.
Yeah, yeah.
My dad and mom would always be preaching whenever they got the chance.
Oh
They
wow,
didn't
they
have us-
preach too?
Yeah, so
Oh,
the way they
man.
do it, well, the way they you did it in my congregation is that anybody who wanted to preach would get up, do a little Bible roulette, open up, read the little thing
Oh,
from the
no.
Bible, yeah, and then just preach right there on the spot from what they read. So
That's dangerous.
that is very
We were-
dangerous. Yeah.
Were we just talking
we were
about
just
this?
talking about this the other
Yeah,
day.
so
Yeah.
yesterday we were meeting to plan RCAA, and I was talking about how sometimes, like, when you're early on in prayer, you're like, man, like, I have no idea what to pray with today. And you get to Holy Hour, and you're just kind of, like, drifting off, and you're like, all right, I need to actually read something. I need to actually start this conversation with God somehow. And so a lot of times people just resort to Bible roulette, and then sometimes you open up to
some like Old Testament
Yeah.
scripture passage. You put your finger on the page, and it's like,
and then
and then he
his-
jumped off a cliff to like kill himself, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Or yeah, just all the crazy
Or
Old
the law
Testament.
books, yeah.
Or the baldy one. What's the?
I was
What is
thinking
that?
of
Is that
the she bear?
Yeah.
That one's pretty rough.
Is that Kings?
Yeah,
Or
Kings.
Something. Second Kings.
Yeah.
Don't insult bald people.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, you're gonna end up.
She bears will rip you to shreds.
Yeah, you're gonna end up in a place you don't want to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's how they do it, though.
Yeah,
that's
how they
nuts.
would do it. Yeah. So, my parents would do that all the time, and like I remember I would do that. Probably did that once or twice. So
You got to go up and preach.
Yeah, I got to
with
go up
the
and
Bible?
preach. Like
Wow.
4 years old, so obviously like a 4-year-old can't really do or say much. So,
So it's
it
just kind
wasn't-
of like testifying. before
yeah,
the
just
Lord.
like a little
Yeah.
testifying. So yeah, it was like that. But and then we would go door to door. So yeah, me and my
Wow.
family, we were those annoying people that would
Wow.
go and ask if you heard about Jehovah and his salvation.
Did
and
you
all
ride a
that
bike
stuff.
like the Mormons?
No, we didn't.
No,
ride
that's-
bikes.
dude, that's
we
totally
carpooled.
different.
Yeah,
Okay,
totally
just thought I would ask.
yeah. So yeah, that's what we did. So we were very devout. My dad actually was climbing up the status with the congregation pretty quickly.
Okay. He was kind of moving up
Yeah,
as
moving
far as
up,
like
yeah.
one of the superior elders, or
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know what they're
yeah.
called.
Yeah, they're
but-
called elders. So
Okay.
yeah, he was moving up there, but yeah, unfortunately we
Well,
with
not
several
unfortunately.
factors and yeah, yeah. Thank God. Because of several factors, we decided to leave. So
Okay.
yeah, and
So what happened from there? So when did you guys decide to leave? How old were you?
I believe I was around maybe 8, 9. I was pretty young. Still,
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
after the like 6-year-old preaching Miguel,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
he's leaving the church with his parents.
We
Yeah.
left the church. So yeah, and then after that, there was just a couple of years that we didn't really have any, any Christian denomination that we followed or anything.
Okay.
But we still believed, in Jehovah. We called God Jehovah. We read their Bible still, and all that. Did their little practices of, like no blood transfusion or none of that.
Okay.
So we were not
Stuck to
Jehovah
the
Witnesses.
rules.
Yeah, we stuck to the rules. We were still Jehovah Witnesses at heart.
Hmm.
And I think that I was very still devoutly Jehovah Witness, even like after we left them. And all throughout middle school and high school, I was very devout. Still didn't like do the Pledge of Allegiance or any of that because that's not allowed.
Oh wow, I didn't
Oh.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Didn't
no one does
celebrate
the
it.
Pledge of Allegiance,
Exactly.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Didn't celebrate birthdays until I converted. So that was crazy.
So when was your first birthday?
My first birthday was, I think, my 17th birthday.
you're like, Mom, Dad, how old am I?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That sucks.
no, yeah, it really did suck. So,
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
we're just gonna have to go hard celebrating your birthday and your
No,
baptism.
please don't.
day. No? Oh, okay. All right.
yeah.
So what happened before that 17th birthday? When were you? What allowed you to start celebrating your birthdays again?
So at the age of 16 is when I was reading their magazines, which is called, in Spanish is called Despierta. I think in English is Awaken, from the Watchtower magazines. So I was
Okay.
reading one of those, and I remember
These
on
are like
it-
Jehovah Witness magazines.
yeah, Jehovah Witness
Okay.
magazines that they give to all their faithful so that they could learn more about their faith. And some of those articles are just extremely anti-Catholic.
Oh, good.
And I remember reading one of those very anti-Catholic articles, and it mainly focused on St. John Paul II. And I remember seeing St. John Paul II in that article celebrating Mass, and I was thinking, wow, what is this? I've never seen
Yeah.
anything like this.
Huh.
It's
Wow.
a very ritualized way of worship. It's very unique in the sense that, he's holding up this little white sphere thing.
Yeah.
So that got me really interested in wanting to investigate more and learning more about the Catholic Church, because my concept of the church was very distorted from what the Jehovah Witnesses
Right. Of course.
say about it. So I just decided to investigate more. What really helped me was the fathers of the church, just seeing how
Right.
they give that witness of the church very early on. So that just made me fall in love with the church and made me fall in love with the church, with St. John Paul II and his just sanctity that he had.
Right.
And it really opened my heart to really pursue becoming a saint. And with that, the Lord really called me to be a priest. Just, that attraction to the Mass, that attraction to the Eucharist. Yeah.
Was it in this? Did the call happen in almost kind of like the same moment, or was it later? Or
it definitely happened at the same moment, because that's what really, got me thinking about the Catholic Church, was that initial call to the priesthood. At first, I had to fight it because
that's crazy.
Being anti-Catholic, I didn't want to,
Wow.
do whatever Catholics do. So
Right.
yeah. So
it was almost like seeing that picture in the article. It was like, I think God might be calling me to whatever He's doing.
Yeah, whatever He's doing.
Whatever He's doing, I want to be doing. Is that kind of?
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what happened. So.
Wow.
Now, when you were going about this kind of deeper digging into the faith, was this all in secret, like all underground, kind of?
Yes, it was definitely all in secret. I remember one time I came home from school and my mom was waiting for me because she was very angry.
Oh no!
Because she found a cross that I made under my bed.
Oh no!
Gosh, that's so crazy.
So like, if you guys know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't even have crosses or anything.
Wow!
Like that, because that's called idolatry according to them. So she was pretty angry. So we had a little discussion of why I wanted to be this pagan and everything. So, and that's when I revealed to her that I wanted to be a Catholic priest. So,
oh my God,
Wow.
that's crazy.
So yeah. But yeah, at first it was very secretive. Just seeing like, oh, what does the church say about this and that? And really investigating, very looking in depth with the Eucharist and Mary were like the two main things that I needed to focus on, because those are the two main things that, Protestants and Jehovah's Witnesses attack.
Right.
So
yeah, it is. I don't know. They're really distinctively Catholic in a sense. We were talking about, I think it was like an ecclesiology class. We were talking about how important Eucharist and the Mary are.
yeah, they're very essential. They always go together.
Because we've been talking about the church as like a nuptial mystery in two aspects, as body and bride, and Mary is that icon, that perfect image of what it means to be the bride of Christ, and then the Eucharist is the body, is what unites us all together. So that's cool. That's really powerful. Who did you started reading some of the church fathers, you said? That's crazy.
Yes.
You're 16 years old and you started looking into the church
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin with that.
Yeah, how did you know? Were you just like, maybe I'll start like
just Google? Well, I don't even know, because
Google
probably didn't even really
know about the church fathers.
Yeah, no, I just so I took whatever the Jehovah's Witnesses said about the church and just reversed it and said, what does the church really say about, like, the papacy, the Eucharist, Mary? And that would always bring me to like what early church fathers would say. Like I knew about Saint Justin Martyr,
because you had read his
thing on the Mass and the Eucharist.
Wow,
So,
that's really powerful.
Yeah,
cool. And so then it took a little bit of time after that to start to discern seminary, because before you were even Catholic, you knew that you wanted to be a priest.
Exactly.
It was like the priesthood brought you into the Catholic Church in a sense. That just like blows my mind. That is, God's grace is so powerful to reach into people's lives, and to like we kind of have these, I don't know, there's always these fears that like God isn't going to provide enough vocations to the priesthood for the church to continue to survive and to thrive as it should be. Exactly, but then I hear stories like Miguel's, and my mind's blown, because it's like God literally used a pamphlet that people had created to try to destroy the church, destroy the priesthood, and talk about how evil it is to call someone to the priesthood. And he reaches, it's like, with no, it's like That's nuts. Like
Right.
his grace and the gift of faith really is a gift.
Well, and it's almost like John Paul II. He
Right.
like they put his picture in there, and John Paul II's like, oh no.
No,
If you're gonna put my picture in there,
something's gonna
something's
happen.
gonna happen. Like that is your mistake.
Yeah.
That was definitely his little miracle for me. His
Yeah.
canonization. So.
Yeah. Was it about his canonization? Or what
No,
was it
this
about?
was way before, I think, even his beatification. So.
Yeah.
It was-
yeah. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
that makes
mhm.
sense.
Right.
It was after his death, though.
Yeah, it was definitely.
course,
after his
yeah.
death,
Yep. So Saint John Paul II's, he's my favorite.
Yeah.
Um,
He's a pretty awesome dude.
yeah. So
So did you end up entering seminary right after high school?
No, I had to wait 2 years because I was
Because you were a
baptized.
convert.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
baptized in
right.
2013, and after baptism, I was what the church considers a neophyte. So I
Right.
had to wait 2 years to just know the faith. Go to confession here and there,
Right.
go receive communion here and there.
right.
Just knowing what the church is. So
Yeah, and just being immersed in the sacramental life, the life of prayer, all these
exactly, yeah.
different things.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, what kind of happens sometimes, it seems, with neophytes is there's like an initial zeal after coming into the church, and you just see some people start to fade away after a year of trying to live out the faith, just getting tired,
Right.
getting confused, struggling with certain issues, and whatever it may be. So those first 2 years, I think, are really important,
Yeah, they're very important. Yeah,
and have the
prayer-
opportunity for a lot of growth.
Exactly, but prayer's, I think, the most important essential thing for a neophyte. You just need to pray right after baptism. You need
Yeah,
to
right.
have that relationship with the Lord, and you need to foster it and continue it after baptism. So, and that's
Yeah.
what really helped me was prayer.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the way it sounds is it was kind of like one of those, for your call at least, it was one of those moments where you just kind of knew right away. It was like the Lord reached in and was like, I don't know, is that true?
Yeah, that's true. That's
Okay.
exactly how I feel.
But
felt.
yeah, but living a life of prayer once you came into the church just only strengthened that calling,
Yeah,
sure,
it strengthened it, yeah.
and
Mhm.
helped that seed to start to grow, and to be watered, and yeah, so it's cool. So
Yeah.
it's important for neophytes and super important for discernment, as we've talked about numerous times.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, because you had mentioned the two kind of pillars being the Eucharist and Mary. How did Mary play into that? Like,
Yeah, so Mary, it's so funny because just looking back at before my conversion, just seeing how there was that very strong hatred that was fostered from the Jehovah's Witnesses towards Mary,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
like super intense.
Yeah,
I remember that this is a very distinct memory that I have.
that's
going in.
crazy. So just real quick, that's nuts because your family's from Mexico, right?
Yeah, they're
from
from
which part
Mexico.
again?
My mother's from Durango, my dad is from Guanajuato.
Okay, so
what?
Guanajuato,
Guanajuato,
Durango, and Guanajuato.
Guanajuato. Yep.
But most of the time, the Hispanic population, even if they're not Catholic, they still love Our Lady.
They still love Our
Right.
Lady. Yeah, unfortunately, that's not always the
Wow.
case.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I guess obviously she doesn't stop going after her.
Yeah,
her
she
children.
doesn't stop going after her children. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the memory that I have, very distinct, is going into a Mexican store in Greeley with my dad. And have you guys ever been to Mexican stores? You
Oh,
see
yeah.
that they have
Yeah,
like
yeah.
their little calendar with Our Lady
I
of
love 'em,
Guadalupe.
yeah.
So I walk in and I see this image, and my dad sees it, and I told my dad, I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Oh, mijo, that is that is some pagan stuff. That's for them a god. So let's not even look at that."
Wow.
Wow.
And it's funny because after that, he asked them for a calendar, and they gave him a calendar of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So he had to give them the calendar. So he's like, I really don't want this. That's pagan stuff. So, but yeah, there was that hatred for Our Lady that they really fostered. But after my conversion, after that first part of the conversion, I began to, again, like I told you guys, study Mary, see what the church really says about
Right.
Mary.
And you're
And
like, oh, it's not an idol.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not an
Right.
idol. They don't worship Mary. And what really grabbed my attention was what scripture says about Mary and what the church says about Mary, and how it's the same thing, you know?
Hmm.
What everybody else says about Mary is definitely not always the case. It's not always the truth. So, yeah, that really helped me fall in love more and more with Mary.
Cool.
Just studying her and seeing what scripture says about her.
Awesome. Yeah. And particularly Our Lady of Guadalupe. I'm
Particularly
guessing.
Lady Guadalupe, yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm Mexican, so I have to love Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. She is awesome.
she's very awesome. Yeah,
She's kind of who we really wanted to talk about today. Was we've talked about Mary, and Our Lady of Guadalupe is Mary, of course. But the beautiful thing about Mary is that she always comes to her people in a way that they're able to receive and fall in love with Jesus, not herself, but Jesus.
exactly.
And
yeah.
so the powerful thing is kind of what we just mentioned was Our Lady of Guadalupe has become almost like this mother to all of Mexico, because without Our Lady of Guadalupe, the Mexican culture as we know it really wouldn't have formed in the way that it did. What
yeah.
I've heard is so. We'll just go back and we'll talk a little bit about the history. So, the Spaniards came to conquer the New World, and they had the huge battle with the Aztecs, right? So it was Hernando Cortez, right?
Yep, Hernando Cortez.
And he came in, and it was a number of years. It was a pretty brutal war. Like I'm sure we've all heard. It's just a little bit about this history, but it took a number of years. And when they got here, they encountered the Aztec culture, and there was just a lot of evil. There was human sacrifices. There was, just a ton of useless killing and taking of innocent life. And so when the Spanish first got here, they were just kind of like blown away, appalled, scared, whatever it is. And the Aztecs had also conquered most of the land surrounding their main capital. But when the Spanish got here, they started making friends with all of these smaller tribes, or these smaller cities who had been conquered by the Aztecs, but really didn't like the Aztecs because of the way that they had treated them.
Because they would take their kids and sacrifice them.
Right, yeah. And so the Spanish and some of the exterior cities surrounding the Aztec capitals started to team up together and wage war against the Aztecs to overthrow them. So after that happened, it was a pretty brutal battle. Mistakes on both sides, The Spanish definitely weren't perfect and didn't treat the native population very well in some way. But they were also trying to bring the gospel. They're trying to bring the good news of Christ, the hope that we have in him, especially after everyone had been through like this and suffered through this intense evil of the Indian culture and the human sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the missionaries got to had started to try to spread the faith, nothing was sticking, nothing was helping, they just had no idea how to evangelize this culture. And there's one of the famous leaders who's known for saying, unless a miracle happens, I have no idea what's going to be able to bring these people to encounter Christ.
Exactly, yeah.
And then it was almost within a couple years, 5-10 years of that, that Our Lady appeared. So do you want to tell a little bit about what happened when Our Lady appeared?
Yeah, so Our Lady appeared in the year 1531, a couple of years after the Protestant Reformation in Europe.
Wow.
So I think that this is super important because she appeared just in the time where everything just seemed dark.
The church seemed to be falling apart.
Yeah, this church wasn't doing so well in Europe or in the Americas. So Our Lady chose to appear just at the time when we all needed our mom.
Yeah.
which I think is super important, right? So she appeared a couple of days before the 12th of December. She appeared on December 9th, 1531, to Juan Diego as Juan Diego was walking to Mexico City for morning mass. The story goes that he heard beautiful music, heavenly music, from on top of the hill. So he decides to go investigate. He reaches the top of the hill and he sees this beautiful woman dressed with the sun, with the moon under her feet,
Wow.
and on her head a crown of 12 stars, just as she's described in the book of
Oh,
Revelation.
man.
And she says, Juanito, Juan Dieguito, the smallest of my children, go to the bishop in Mexico City and have him build an altar there for me,
Wow.
where I will be able to hear the cries of all my children in Mexico. So Juan Diego tries to persuade her that he's not the right guy for it because, as he said, I am the smallest of your children. But she insists. She insists that he goes and he accepts. He accepts the request of the beautiful lady. He goes to the Bishop of Mexico City and he asks for a sign from the lady to make sure that it's authentic.
The bishop does, right?
The bishop does,
Yeah.
yes. Bishop Zumarraga,
Yeah,
the first
'cause-
bishop of Mexico City.
Because Juan Diego is like this. He's like this smaller. He was
a native.
He was
right?
a native,
An
right?
Aztec native, yep.
And just kind of like a poor man. Not really. He was uneducated in some ways, right?
Mhm.
And so when he shows up to the bishop, I mean, it must have taken a lot of courage, one. But then the bishop's like, "Who the heck are you?"
Exactly, yeah. What the heck is this guy? So
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna need a little bit more than just your word that I'm supposed to
yes,
build.
yes, for a miraculous sign from the lady. So Juan Diego goes back to the foot of Tepeyac, and he meets Our Lady again and tells her that the bishop wants a sign, and she tells him that she will give him the sign if he comes tomorrow. So the next day, Juan Diego sees that his uncle is very sick to the point of death. So he decides to go to Mexico City again, this time to get a priest to come and anoint his uncle, his dying uncle. So as he's traveling and getting close to the Tepeyac Hill, he knows that he has to avoid Our Lady. Because she will stop him and talk with him and ask him again for the request. So he tries to avoid her, goes another direction, and there Our Lady appears again to him. So there's no escaping Our Lady, right?
Yeah. You know that best of all.
Yeah,
huh?
exactly, yeah. There's really no escaping Our Lady. She again tells him to go to the Bishop of Mexico City and ask him to build the altar to her there at the Tepeyac Hill. And he says, beautiful lady, I can't. My uncle is sick. I need to go to Mexico City to get a priest. And this part of the story is what I think find the most beautiful of the story.
Me too.
She says, my son, let nothing trouble you. Am I not here, I who am your mother? What more do you have to fear?
Oh, man.
At this
that's
moment,
my favorite line.
yeah,
That's one of my
exactly,
favorite
yeah.
lines.
At this moment, your uncle will be healed. And he was miraculously healed. He miraculously healed because she appeared to his uncle as well. So, and also the faith of Juan Diego is really incredible too, because with those words,
Of course.
he really took them into heart. And he decides to go to Mexico City, this time with the sign that Our Lady gave him, which were roses growing on top of the Tepeyac Hill.
Yep.
Um,
And remember, it's the middle of winter, so
it's
there's
the middle,
frost. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
so this is not the
Mm.
time where flowers are supposed to be growing.
Exactly,
on
yeah.
the
And if
hill.
you guys have ever gone to Tepeyac Hill, there's shouldn't be growing anything there. It's
Yeah, it's
almost
barren.
It's a
like
swamp.
desert, yeah.
Basically,
yeah.
right?
It's
So
like
the
desert.
Tepeyac Hill is kind of like a desert, just very
Oh,
dry,
okay.
very.
arid,
arid, yeah.
sands. It's
So
there's not any sort
exactly, yeah.
of flowers or
Yeah.
brush or
And I remember reading on this story closely. The roses actually were roses native to Spain,
wow,
not to
oh
Mexico.
my gosh,
So it's
Wow. Which is
incredible.
where, like, isn't the original or like the actual original devotion to Our Lady Guadalupe in Spain?
It's in Spain, yeah.
Yeah. So that's incredible.
Yeah. So, yeah, he brought the roses, the Spanish native roses, to the bishop. And immediately as he reveals them to the bishop, there appears Our Lady's image, just as he saw her on his tilma.
He wrapped the roses in his tilma, right?
Yes,
and then
exactly.
when he took off his tilma to put the flowers on the ground, the miraculous image was there.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. And so, I mean, this image is crazy.
Right.
So the tilma is made out of cactus fiber.
It's made out of cactus fiber, yeah, which is a very rough fiber that only should last around 20 to 30 years.
20 to 30 years.
Before it just disintegrates.
Yeah, before it just disintegrates, exactly.
Yeah, and just so everyone's clear, this happened in 1531, and the image is still the same image that's on display in the cathedral in Mexico City, or the basilica in Mexico City.
Right.
And it's still in pristine condition with perfect detail, and nothing of the tilma has degraded at all. For like the first 130 years, it wasn't even behind any glass. It was just open to the dry, arid air of Mexico, where it should have just completely disintegrated,
Right.
and
Exactly,
it
yeah.
never did.
Yeah. Yeah, and like in the image, it went through a lot, as you said. Like it didn't. It wasn't even behind glass. So imagine all the countless candles, all the countless smoke from the candles and the incense, all that,
and the flower, the flies and all the different bugs and stuff that would have been in the air, in the open air basilica, because for many years it wasn't as closed off like we have now. And so there's all sorts of stuff that should have just completely torn apart this image, but
exactly, yeah.
Right.
But it survived throughout the whole time.
Yeah, I'll always remember that story of when Hillary Clinton went to go visit the tilma.
Oh yeah.
She got like a private showing of it, and she's like, "Man, this is a really beautiful painting. Who made it?" And the Monsignor or the bishop or whatever was just like, "God."
Yeah, that's a good story.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh,
Okay.
So this image, not only is it miraculous that it's still there, but because of how fibrous and rough like the cactus fibers are, it's really hard to have any sort of detail.
It's nearly impossible to paint on such a canvas.
Yep.
Something interesting about Our Lady is just like just all the symbols behind the image. For example, she's standing in front of the sun, which, knowing the pagan Aztecs, they definitely worship the sun.
Right.
Yeah,
So then
that was
the
like one of
highest
the biggest
gods.
deities.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So Mary standing in front of the sun, actually being clothed with the sun, just shows how far superior she is to their gods. And she's a simple human. They recognize that. She's just a simple human, and yet she's still superior than our gods.
And she's standing on top of the moon, which is another...
Yeah, she's standing on top of the moon, which represents several things. The moon was a symbol for one of their gods, which they also represented as a serpent.
Oh,
So
man.
Mary is standing on the serpent god. Yeah. So that definitely comes from Genesis, right?
Right.
From the book of Genesis.
Yeah.
The moon also represents Mexico, because to them, Mexico was the belly of the world and the belly of the moon. So she's standing on Mexico as if being the protectress of Mexico.
Yeah, being the queen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Her mantle is of a heavenly color to show that she is royalty and she came from heaven, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm.
An interesting thing about her mantle is that the stars on her mantle they correspond to the constellation of that night that she appeared. But what's interesting is that if you were looking at from Earth to the sky, you're not going to see those constellations, because those constellations are as if you were looking from the sky down to the Earth.
Oh my gosh!
So it is as
it's like a reverse image.
It's reverse, yeah.
That's
so it's
so
really
crazy.
God who painted that image, because only He has that view from heaven. Yeah, yeah, and her robe represents that she is a mother as well, and a virgin. So it represents those two because of the color of the reddish color. But also her belt represents that she's pregnant. And if you seen the image, you just see the little pregnant belly that she has.
Right. She has like a black sash over the top of her womb.
Exactly.
And that was always the sign of of a woman who's pregnant.
Exactly. Yeah.
In the Indian culture.
So another thing about her robe is that her sleeves of her robe are they're the skin, like it's animal skin. What is it?
Like hide?
Animal hide?
Yeah, like animal hide, which were for royalty, for the Aztecs.
Oh my god.
But also on her wrists, if you look closely, she's chained as like a slave.
Oh my
so
gosh,
it's
that's
like
crazy.
It's always a contradiction.
So everyone's,
So exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And on her neck, she has a little cross to show the Aztecs that the Catholic religion is the true religion. Her hair, it's not tied, it's loose, signifying that she's a virgin.
Yep.
And
So yeah, that would be a contradiction with the black belt.
exactly, yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
that's
So
another
everyone's
contradiction.
confused. And then over the top, like on her robe is a bunch of different types of designs, and right over her womb where the baby who they know where the baby would have been is a flower, and this flower is a particular type of flower for the Aztec culture that represents the God of the universe, the creator of all this, the first cause, the source of all being.
Exactly.
And
it's
so
right on her womb.
Yeah, so they know she's a virgin.
Huh.
They see the cross, and they say the cross is the instrument of salvation. It's really important.
Right.
And they see that she's pregnant, and they see that the baby in her womb is actually the God of the universe. And so everything points to Jesus in the womb. But then all of the basically the whole image has all of salvation history in it at the same time. And so the native Aztec at that time would have seen this image and just had their minds blown.
Exactly, yeah.
They would have seen all of it right there.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. Yeah. And so after Our Lady appeared after this in 1531, it was hardly anyone had come into the church. And afterward, there was 9 million conversions that happened as a result.
Which I mentioned Martin Luther earlier, because it's crazy to see how he took so many souls from the church. And yet Mary appears and brings back almost double of what he took from the church in a matter of years.
Right.
So in like about, 5-10 years? So
yeah. After almost 15, 20 years of trying to convert the people in a couple of years, this many people had joined to replace the, So, it's incredible. And so when I was down in Mexico this past summer, I had the chance to go and visit. And what was so powerful to me is like when you walk into the church, your eyes are immediately brought to Our Lady, and you just sense like her physical presence there. It's just so powerful. You see her there, and you're like, wow, like Mary's physically with you know.
Right.
It almost, I guess kind of liken it to like you know the physical presence of Jesus in the Eucharist is there when you walk into the church, and when you walk into this basilica, it's like the physical presence of Mary is there.
Exactly.
Sign and you come closer to the image, and you just look up at her, and just the words that would always come back to me were, "Am I not here who am your mother?"
Exactly, yeah.
And her motherly care and guidance and protection for us all, and the way she seeks us out, and constantly has us under her mantle. And so, oh man, that was definitely the best day of the summer, was being able to go and visit Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Yeah,
for me.
I also visited Our Lady over the summer.
I prayed for Miguel too when I was down there.
Good, yeah, good. Yeah, no, when I visited in May last year, it was a very beautiful experience as well. Like Micah said, you just feel Our Lady there. To me, the craziest thing about visiting Mexico City and the Basilica is just how loud and just crazy,
it's complete chaos.
Mexico
Oh
City
my
is. Just,
gosh.
like, all around it's just so
I can
crazy,
imagine.
so chaotic. But as soon as you enter the Marian Plaza at the Basilica, it just dies. It becomes so silent, so still. It is as if you just are transported out of this world into heaven almost. There's just a lot of peace surrounding the place. So
Right. Yeah. And they have the original basilica where the image was held, and they also have the church built on the hill. Was that the original church
yeah,
that was
the
built
original church. Yeah, the one on the hill.
in honor, from Our Lady's command, right, to Juan Diego? That was the church that was built in honor of him and her, and so it's just cool. It's wild, and you can almost enter into the story and enter into the Our Lady appearing. And another line that really struck me was on one of the paintings in the old basilica. You remember when you've been there, Miguel, how there's 4 huge paintings on the walls that show a different scene from each of that time period. There's like one of all the natives being baptized, one of a lot of the Spaniards presenting the image to the Pope, and underneath that, it has a line from one of the Psalms that God has not done this for any other nation.
Exactly, yeah.
And in the Psalms, it's talking about Israel, how God has not brought him out of Egypt. God has not brought continually watched over any other nation like he's watched over Israel. But you read it there, and you just realize the power. Like, God has not done this, brought this image, this miracle to any other nation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And after this, she becomes just like the queen of all the Americas, and especially like we were talking about, the mother of Mexico. Because before this, the natives and the Spanish people really weren't mixing at all. Maybe some of the natives ended up being some of the slaves to the Spaniards, or they're trying to create a culture though where people would come together, but with that gap, with that chasm between the Spanish and the natives, because of their religion, it was really hard for anything to happen. But after Our Lady appeared, after a lot of natives started coming into the church, they started to get married. They started to come together in community, and like the people that we know now, like most of Mexico is people who come from both native and Spanish descent.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's that the Mexican people are born from this experience, and she's in a sense the mother of orchestrating all of that.
Exactly.
And so you talk to most people, and they just love Our Lady. Exactly. And everyone down when I was down in Mexico at least knew about Our Lady of Guadalupe. They may not have known.
Yeah, in one way or another. So.
But the beautiful thing is now, I mean, sometimes people will have a devotion to Our Lady without really even being Catholic or Christian. But we know, and we can have confidence that Our Lady always brings people to Jesus. She never points to herself. And so in some way or another, I'm sure Our Lady will start to work in these people's hearts to bring them to Jesus. So, thanks so much, Miguel. It's
thank
awesome.
You guys for having me.
Yeah.
I love talking about Our Lady of Guadalupe, and it's great to hear your story again. I love our Our Lady of Guadalupe and St. John Paul II.
Yes,
so we're going to talk about both today, and it gives me so much energy.
I am going back to Mexico City in May, so pray for me, and I'll be praying for you guys. So.
Cool.
Yeah, and pray for Father Jim Thermos, because he's there right now.
Yeah,
at this very moment.
Esteban.
He's actually bringing back an image for the seminary. So
Awesome. Sweet.
Awesome. Cool. Yep. And do we have anything else? Cool. Yeah, we have class here pretty soon. We're recording in the morning.
30 seconds.
All right. We will see you next time.
You're listening to Sons of Ours podcast.
That's ours with an A. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.